Hello and welcome to Macro Mondays here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is July 22nd, 2024, and you'll have to forgive me, I'm a little tired. It's been a very long weekend into the beginning of the week. So we're going to start off with a little bit of a different chart. Now, Macro Mondays is a longer video, so please bear with me. There's going to be a lot of information in here, but we're going to start with something very simple, and that's a look at the volatility metrics for the Bollinger Bands. And the reason why I want to look at this is because Bitcoin has had a very nice sharp move off of the lows now. It did spend some time consolidating on the lows in this downtrending structure. Nice higher low here right off 56,500 on the wick. Nice close open to trend break all in one go over a weekend. And then, of course, pushing from the lower second standard deviation on a close. Of course, we do see lower third standard deviation wicks down here during this extension or expansion to the downside. And now price has run the other way and is now just grinding up against that upper second standard deviation. Now, this is actually a pretty good thing for the bulls. This is what you want to see, this continuation of the reclaim of the horizontal levels that we're going to look at in just a moment, but also maintaining closes above the upper first standard deviation, turning the basis band around or flipping it back to the upside. That is a positive thing. And then, keeping pressure on that upper second standard deviation. Now, what I will tell you is, as long as it is closing between the upper first and upper second standard deviation, Bitcoin can go into what's known as a cool down period. This is where we do have some price compression as it relates to the bands, even though we're in the midst of an upside or downside move. It's a consolidation between usually the first and second standard deviations, either to the upside or downside. We saw this on the move down as well. So you can see kind of where I'm heading with this. There is likely going to be a daily high put in. We now have a daily higher low at around 63,200. So as long as Bitcoin is closing candles above 63,200, we're looking at this structure remaining an uptrending structure as it stands right now. Areas of interest to pull back to on a volatility basis from the band's perspective, the upper first right now to maintain expansion of volatility to the upside in terms of the bands, and then possibly get a nice little reset by dipping down to the basis at some point here. And that is currently below some of the areas that I'd want to see closed below right now, specifically breaking trend below 63,200 or so. Although wicks are fine down to the basis. This is at 61.5 now. Realistically, you want to see it holding horizontal support levels somewhere around the 62,800 to the 63,800 level here, which just so happens to be the bigger downtrend lower high of the last move that coincides with a previous area of resistance as well over here on a closing basis at $64,000. It got front run at 63.8, closed at 62.8 down here. And that just so happens to be an area that was found as support. So you don't really want to see that area of support lost. And then, of course, get a trend break. So an uptrend break on closes below that 63,200. Some charts, it's a little bit more aggressive. I would stick with the spot price chart. So any closes below 63,200. I would not want to see, but it's also kind of okay and expected if it did happen, as Bitcoin is trying to turn around a pretty long downtrend. But again, a trend break is, opening the door for a possible resumption of or shift to a downtrend. I should say not a resumption of, because this is an uptrend. So an initial trend break doesn't really mean anything until we got a lower high, basically. So right now, Bitcoin is in and has tagged the next big area that I spoke of from Friday's video above the 67. We're going to look at the support and resistance chart, but above this high at 67,272, I had mentioned that I was looking for Bitcoin to potentially run the highs if it can maintain closures above here. But more likely, Before running those highs, it's got to get through some major resistance at around $68 to $70,000. $68 to $70,000 just so happens to be this low right here from this last lower high that kicked off the entire downtrend. So it's this low wick of the actual lower high structure at around $68,000. You can see that that is where Bitcoin is currently finding its primary resistance to the actual failure to push back up. So we had this low wick and then a swing high to a swing low, and then of course closing low was put in on this candle right here on the 11th. But we had the swing down to swing up, which is at about 70,200. So primary resistance overhead is around $68 to $70,000, give or take a couple $100 on that wick there, depending on your exchange, of course. This can very easily be highlighted as something like this. So if you wanted to highlight it on your chart, that's the primary. If I can actually get it correct there, there we go. That's basically the primary resistance overhead right now. You can even see how price has historically interacted with that area. You know, we've had some nice closures. You know, the $70,000 rejected right here, holds 68, pushes up to the all-time high, tries to hold this area, falls through it, finds it as resistance, pops up for a couple of closures. You know, around that, you know, $71.5 to $72,000 range. Heads back down, hits the upper second here at around 73, and then of course tries to hold this area at 68 again, and then boom down. Now, of course, there is longer term time frame reasons why this area is important, because $69,000 is the prior cycle high, and you know 68 to 70 brackets at $1,000 on each side. So this is not anything too crazy to be observing in this area. Now, what does this really mean? You know, well, you can see that as it stands right now, the upper second standard deviation, like I'm not looking for like a clean breakout and sky high prices. And in fact, I would just encourage you to look at the bands as they are right now. $70,000 is basically where the upper second standard deviation is, right in this resistance area that we highlighted here. And then the upper third standard deviation is just shy of $75,000. So I've maintained this since Bitcoin even got into this area that, you know, around 70 above the all-time high, I'm still looking $73,000 to $75,000. It's primarily been my thesis since the beginning of this range. And then of course take it 75 to 78, 78 to 80, mid to low 80s from there. There's a lot of reasons for that. I might get into some today, but I think it's going to be a little bit more important based on some of the feedback that I got to explain kind of how all of these things are going to fit together going forward here. So I do want to also point out and kind of give you some tips and tricks for identifying key areas of interest. You know, on the way up, you're looking lows to highs, right? So when Bitcoin was turning its trend around down here, you're looking, you know, lows to highs, right? So when it was down on the bottom here, you're looking wick low to these lows, and then you're looking at this cluster of lows and all the confluent areas around 60,300 or so on the wick to that 60,800 area on the closes. You see order block candles over here. So you have all these different lows that Bitcoin had to work its way through, of course, including its area that was confluent over here with the lows that were most recent, because the most recent trend is going to be the most important one, and then historical. But in this case, you know, you work from lows to highs in terms of resistances when Bitcoin is on its way up through or to those resistances. So, you know, the bottom side, then the top side happens to be confluent with this close over here at 64 to 65.5, right? That's also right around some closes on the lows here. And then above there, 67,272. We saw that this was a rejected area in both the both downtrends. So now they're both prior downtrends because Bitcoin is in an uptrend. But this first downtrend and then second downtrend, same area of resistance. You know, and then we're looking at you know, this area right here, the bottom side of the wicks, and the closes here where price was being held up was also confluent with this. This high put in, and of course this retest after the breakdown. So, you know, this was retested on two days, and then we saw Bitcoin approach it and then finally break into this area again. So the most interesting area, or the biggest area of interest right now, is going to be 68 to 70. If Bitcoin does start to reclaim 68 like on a close, and really start to push up, maintain. Of course, when you're looking for supports, you're looking back down these structures from highs to lows, right? So the high is over here, is right there in and above the upper first standard deviation. So it is important to pay attention to these two confluent factors: the upper first for volatility at around that $65 to $66,000. And then we've got this high side structure close at 66,800 with the wicks there at 67,272. So this is going to be the primary lower term time frame support area. If that begins to break down, you look down to the in trend high here on a close, because the high wick is already where the upper first is. Again, confluent areas, right? So the close open structure here at around $65,000, and then of course we move that over to 63,800 to that 62,800. And sorry, I hit my stand there, and I think I heard that reverberate all the way through the microphone. So apologies for that. But now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and turn on the longer term time frame support and resistance chart. So this is going to be the monthly, weekly. Just got some historical levels on here, and this is pretty straightforward stuff. Bitcoin is back in the zone, and if you have not seen this chart, if this is new to you, no worries. I'm going to explain it. We'll even get rid of the Bollinger Bands, although we might turn them back on for just a moment before we end our daily analysis here and move on to some higher term timeframes, because we did have a weekly. But we can see, Bitcoin deviated the closes here. Now, these were the closing all-time highs, because we did have two first all-time high kind of put in and a monthly high put in. The close was from March of 2021. Of course, we got another higher monthly close again later that year in October of 2021. So we had two monthly all-time high closes. Just so happens that the March one was also a quarterly close. So like when we were coming into October of that year, that we were calling that out as like, this is likely like the last shot. It's not going to go much higher. I will at some point revisit some of that for some of the newer people, but we see that this area, this March of 2021, was around $58,800 to $59,000 on a closing high for the monthly and of course quarterly. Bitcoin deviated on the daily, and then again on the daily here, almost reaching for this weekly area down below that was also historically significant, and was even retested earlier this year for a brief period of time on the daily at $63,000 to the close open structure. So this was a swing high structure at 63, $53,000. Let's correct that real quick. $53,000 on the swing high from September of 2021. Found support on a historical area earlier this year. This was in February of this year. Found historical support around $50,000 roughly at the August of 2021 to December of 2021 weeklies. I told you I'm a little tired, a little out of it. My apologies. And right now, we've got above the monthly zone here, we've got the swing or the wick or the shadow or the actual, first all-time high at $65,000 from 2021, and of course $69,000 being the prior cycle all-time high that was put in November of 2021. Breaking back into the $65,000 zone is encouraging. Bitcoin needed to close above basically 65,500 here. Once it put in a high right around this high at 65.5. It did wick through, of course, hitting around 66, fulfilling one of those targets, coming back down, retesting around the support structure, flipping this resistance into support at 62,800 to 63,800, and then pushed on through, breaking this high at 65.5, and now has broken the next high or lower high in this case, where we have two confluent areas where this was a lower high on a swing and a lower high on a close. Lower high swing, candle structure, lower high close, lower high swing, lower high close. So reclaiming that area, you want to see that held, or else you're looking back down. $69,000 is in the cards from a volatility perspective. Pushing above there to $70,000, I would not be surprised to see it rejected, at least on first pass. But if it does blast off above there, we're looking right back to the highs, right? Like we're looking, $70,000 right around here, 70,200. That's that area that I just highlighted, the swing low to this actual closing high right here that kicked off the big downtrend of the prior downtrend. Then above there, we're looking 71.8, 71.5 to 71.8, $72,000. Basically, above here at $70,000, we're looking at $72,000. Above there, it's not much. It wouldn't take much to hit, 73 to 73,835 over by the all-time high. And then, as I showed you on the bands there, I'd be looking roughly 73 to 75. Like, it's not going to be exact, but that's roughly where I'd be looking. And then 75 to 78 if we start seeing closures above 75. And that's where we're, you could see wicks or closes, and then 78 to 80. It might actually be worth me getting into that a little bit more today, but that's where we can throw in our Bollinger Bands again. You can see how I'm deriving some of these targets. You can see that 72 or $70,000 basically right around the swing high of that closing high. We've got the basis band right on the October of 2021 monthly closing high. So, historically significant area. I do want to see the basis above this lower high of the prior trend and a little bit more around the current low side structure. So the longer Bitcoin can kind of hang around and above 65, the better. And I'm going to show you why a little bit more in depth here. So let's go ahead and look at the stochastic momentum. It is in the overbought zone. Just understand it can stay here for quite a while. It can even oscillate around and get bullish resets here. Closes above 66,500. In this case, we'll keep it turned to the upside here. So looks good. As it stands right now, it's trading about $1,000 above that pivot. But if it does drop it on the daily, you will see momentum turn down to the downside. Again, all of the relevant criteria would need to be met, like breaking down from 65,000 here, and then heading down to 62,800 to 63,800 at this high. So, that's where I would be looking next, but we would need to see the closes and how they came in, because you don't just want to take a momentum shift and call it a day. Same thing here. Bitcoin's broken into the bullish control zone. It can hang out here for quite a while. And we're not even close to getting a signal to be warning us of any issues here in terms of moving averages. This is a 12-period moving average. Signal line is at 65, 2 to 300. So Bitcoin starts closing below there, then it's falling out of the bullish control zone. First pass rejections, not too crazy. Maybe it paints a little, if it were to do that, if it were to do that, to be quite honest, what I would be looking for next is, if we did get any closes below the actual low side structure here at that 63, 63,200, basically $63,000, right? That's where I'd be looking at that as like, okay, warning signals, we've got a trend break, and then we've got all these other confluence signals, downside cross and falling below the simple moving average and out of the bullish control zone and all that stuff. But as it stands right now, this is a move in progress, and I would not be fading a move in progress until it's not in progress anymore. So let's go ahead and look at the weekly close, and I'm going to wrap this up. I will look at some of the timeframes. There are other important timeframes that closed, but I want to point out something that I had mentioned last week when it comes to the weekly. We might look at the 5-day. 5 days is going to be closing today, I think. So it might be relevant. Yeah, 5 days is going to close with today's daily candle. Let's get through the weekly, and then we'll look at the 5-day. All right, 5-day encouraging things for the bulls here. We saw the big expansion coming into a compression, as I've noted this entire time. You're usually not going to look for expansion to a quick compression to re-expansion. So as the bands were coming up and curling back down, the bands are acting as areas of support to the downside at the extremes, and to the upside, they're likely going to act as areas of resistance. Again, above the upper first, which just so happens to be around the prior cycle all-time high on the weekly at around $69,000. Likely going to act as an area of resistance in our $68,000 to $70,000 zone. So we do have confluence there. Above $72,000, note that if we see Bitcoin breaking out on the daily to 70 to 72 resistance, there is just above there more resistance around $73,000. just shy of 73 at the upper second standard deviation. But if Bitcoin does start to close outside of that, and of course above the prior cycle all-time high, be aware of around 73 to 75, possibly even wicks up to $76,000 or just over there at the upper third standard deviation. Now, if we do start to see closures by the end of this week, and we'll talk about this again on Friday, but if we do start to see closures above the upper second, we would be starting to identify this as expansion on the weekly, and likely even on, maybe it consolidates a little on the daily and lower term or higher term timeframes between the daily and weekly, but we're likely looking at this starting to gear up for its actual next big run. That doesn't rule out volatility back to the downside for liquidity and stuff like that, but if we see a closure above the upper second, be aware that because the bands are now flattened out, it's a range. So closures above the upper second means that we're going to be seeing expansion to the upside. So usually that's going to confirm your expansion. Of course, there's always two criteria when using volatility metrics like this. You need to close above the volatility metric of the upper or lower bands, right? But you also have to break out and close above the, in this case, overhead resistance at 73,835. So it's conditional. Must close above 73,835 and close above the upper second standard deviation. That's just shy of $73,000, coming in at 72,800. If Bitcoin, by the way, does push up towards the upper second midweek, you will see this number actually update. So again, if you want these bands, they're free. The whole indicator set is free. You can find it in the link in my profile. It's the bit.ly link. It's just a link shortener so that I can fit my bio over there on X, or the link in the video description down below on YouTube. Now, same for the upside is downside. We do have to talk about downside. And the reason we have to talk about downside is, as I've mentioned quite a few times, we have a downtrend here, right? So we have a not only a swing downtrend, but we have a closing downtrend on the weekly. Bitcoin needs to break the downtrend. That would be the first encouraging thing on weekly closes above $72,000, and then of course go and start get that expansion that we just talked about to the upside. But if it were going to reject anywhere in the context of a downtrend, the upper first is the place. Now, that does mean that we would need to see subsequent closures to put in a lower high in the weekly, and not even a lower high close, but if it could be a higher high close. If it doesn't break $72,000, it really hasn't broken the downtrend on a swing basis. At minimum, we're looking for downside again, and then maybe it screws around and then tries to move back to the upside. But to be quite honest, that would start to look like risk is to the downside. Any closures below the lower second still has to meet criteria, right? So the bulls actually have a little bit of leeway to the downside if we did see something like that happen. And again, I don't want to see this happen for the bulls. But if, for instance, the upper first and the upper second, maybe there's a giant wick through it and it doesn't close above 72, and then it puts in a weekly lower high again, the downside risk would be back to the lower second at around 58,500. But I would be looking for price to expand down to the current low side structure at 53,500, possibly wicks lower into our daily distribution zone that I've shown you so much before. We'll bring that back up. It's not really relevant right now, but maybe on Wednesday's video and some charting in between. But only if it was getting expansion below the lower second, and of course, in this case, because of the compression below the lower third, and then closes below 53,500, then I would be like, okay, this is going in for a much longer term correction. And the reason that I bring this up is like worst case scenario for the bulls. I do not think that's what's happening right now. And I'm gonna elaborate on why right now, actually. So we do have a cross back up just above the bearish control zone here on the weekly momentum chart. So this is good. This is good for the bulls. Nice cross to the upside, but they need to finish out the week strong above 62,148. So 62,150, 62.2 basically. Again, closes above there. We're going to get a momentum shift back to the upside. There is hidden bullish divergence here. It's not populating on my indicators. Don't worry about it. We still are in a capitulation when it comes to hash rate. So this might take a little bit, but if Bitcoin starts to break out 73 to 75, maybe a little bit of pushback in the upper $70,000 areas, you're probably going to see capitulation end on the miner side of things. It's starting to get there from the daily perspective. It's not really, anything actionable yet, and this is always a late signal anyway. But this would start to turn capitulation around for miners as well. And that brings me to, we'll go back to the weekly. Oh, yeah, the reason why I brought up the daily is not just for the minor capitulation stuff, but, closing below some of the areas that we just talked about would be below, this would be a structure break on the weekly, right? So understand that if Bitcoin were to close the end of the week below the pivot, it would also be breaking structure on the daily. So it'd be breaking this uptrend on the daily. So I did want to point that out. But yeah, so this is this to me from a volatility standpoint looks like nice move back down, nice longer term time frame bull flag. It's a little extended to be quite honest, but nice breakout above the highs, and then maybe it goes for it. Sometime late August or something. If it starts to get rolling before then, of course, we're going to know, and then the actual run gets rolling maybe by the end of summer into fall. I would actually prefer to see that, and then maybe we could start looking a little bit deeper targets. But one of the reasons why I bring all this up is to go and look at some fundamental analysis. Of course, understanding what's going on in the markets is very important. We'll check on the 5-day. It is going to close today. It needs to close above the upper first to go test the upper second, which is around $72,000. Go figure. So $72,000 is the upper second. You want to see it closing above 67,500, 550 area. So end of day today with the daily, the 5-day will close. From a volatility standpoint, that would give us, basically this lower high structure on the 5-day at $72,000 a shot. Right. And then, of course, same thing as the weekly. You want to see $72,000 closed above to break this particular downtrend, and the same thing, holding the basis is good around that 64,500, and using that as a close open move to the upside here over the past 5-day candle is very nice. We also have pressure to the upside here on the 5-day above 59,200. So looking good above on closes on the 5-day above 59,200. This will update. And it looks like it's even going to try pushing out of the bearish control zone here as well. All right. Now, I bring all of this up, of course, to show you this fundamental chart that's going to burn your eyeballs, because we just went from the dark charts to the light charts here. This is the Caprioli's Bitcoin production cost. Yes, this is the one I'm going to use. You can send me the ones that you like, but this is the one that I like because it accounts for things that many of those charts that you're sending me do not, and those data aggregators do not account for. So I want to point something out. Bitcoin is now trading above its production cost. 67,614 is kind of where this last updated. It's roughly around there. It's the aggregate spot price, probably on the index, if I had to guess. Now, that's the price of Bitcoin. The production cost is right here. It is at 60,164. So Bitcoin is back above production cost. Now, it needs to remain above production cost to get capitulation ending signals. We're starting to see that, the etchings of this. Now, electrical cost is also diving. So we see production cost and electrical cost diving. Electrical cost is now at 42,700 to 800. It's 42,716. I would give it some room around there. And then, of course, we have the actual miner price. Now, Bitcoin's price is above its production cost, but it is not above the miner price. So therefore, we still have capitulation. But miner price is around 69,667. Almost had a crazy confluence of meme numbers there. But the reason that I bring this up is I'm going to show you a little bit of history very quickly. Post-halving, you see production and electrical falling off very sharply. And the last halving, what do you see? Just after the halving, you see electrical and you see production falling very sharply, almost at the same angle. Bitcoin, of course, remained in this area for a little bit longer before pushing above, coming back in and around the production cost in terms of miner price and price before going on the run. Now, before that, we saw this at, guess what? We had the halving. And in this case, this was a bit unique in 2016 because Bitcoin rode its electrical cost all the way up. As electrical cost rose, so did Bitcoin's price. But you notice the same sharp drop off for production cost and electrical cost. We are now entering this phase, which does tell me that we're pretty much on track for much of the stuff that we've been talking about here in terms of timing. I'm not going to be your timing guy. I'm a trader. I trade every day consistently. I have longer term time frame positions in options markets, but I'm not gonna. I will give you the timing as the picture becomes clear in front of me. I'm not gonna try to predict something, 3 or 6 months out. I will give you my idea of general areas of interest, upside and downside for those time periods, and then refine that as we get closer. So it is kind of lining up with somewhere around maybe end of August into September timeframe. And end of August can be like the last 2 weeks of August or last week of August for things to actually get rolling or breaking out. Maybe we're already in a breakout by that point. If Bitcoin does choose to head to the upside, especially over this week into the beginning of August, that would look really good for timing that. But just understand, the longer the Bitcoin takes in its structure that it's building right now, which I do believe is bullish as all holy F, the longer the bull run will actually be, and the higher prices will go. So we're going to leave off with something pretty simple here. There's a few fibs you can pull. I don't generally show you fibs because I don't really care to project based on that, and it gets a little complex for some of the newer people that are joining. But we do even have some local fib structure that we need to be aware of. I'm taking the weekly, just the most recent high to the most recent lower low, the most recent higher high to the most recent lower low, I should say. It is, almost like a falling channel. Some people have a broadening wedge painted on this, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. It's whatever suits you and helps you analyze the price that's going to be beneficial for your trading. In this case, you can see that above the one spot, now I've already called out, I'm looking 73 to 75 above the all-time high initially, and then 75 to 78, and then 78 to 80. Well, the $80,000 is the 1272 from this local range. Above there, mid to low 80s, 1414. We're looking at $85,000. It's just shy of $85,000. It's 84,370. So it's 84 to $85,000. And then above there, 90s, obviously, around the 1618. Above there, all the way up to the two spot, we got that $100,000 target on the extension side of things. Now, this can also just be taken from the high here to the previous move. Yes, all the Elliott wave people are going to get very, very irritated with me for doing this in the manner that I am doing it. That's okay. You do you. I will do me. As I do understand Elliott wave trading, I'm not an Elliott wave trader for a reason. All right, so we've got mid to low. We've got the swing high to swing low. This was a closing high, and then the most recent closing low of the entire structure on the move up before the downtrend. We've got the 1272 coming in at 88, 1414 at 96. We've got the 1618 coming in over 110. I usually give these a little bit of overlap between the two most recent moves. Yes, it is a combination of like GAN and Elliott wave and all these other things for those of you that are technical traders. My system works very well. Just keep watching. The 120 to 130 areas in the cards, like the 1786, all that kind of stuff is fully in the cards. And then if you really want to get granular with this, or you really want to see where things kind of fall, just take the last downtrend on the weekly from the prior cycle, and you can go high to low, kind of see where things fall, and make sure that we're on log 2 just to check ourselves. Yeah, we are. So we've got the more macro picture coming in with closes above $69,000 that are consistent on longer term time frames. We're looking at and a breakout, of course, of the local structure. Looking at the 1272 from the prior run down at around $100,000, and then the 1414 at about 130, coming in at 128. Above there is extensions. 1618 is coming in around the 170 region, 173 specifically up here. So those are longer term targets. We will refine as things start to, get to a blue sky breakout or the blue sky breakout portion of this market cycle. So that's where I'm going to leave things for today. I know we reviewed some things that I've shown you guys all the way through for a very long time, but this is more for, there's a lot of new people coming in, checking out my analysis. There's some people that are professionals. There's some people that are not professionals, but, they're day traders. They learned how to trade, either through different groups or reading and, being the auto dictat kind of a trader. I have knowledge for those of you that are on that side of things. I'm very, very knowledgeable of the different trading systems. I've, even traded many of them professionally. And I've developed my own. And then also this is, going to be tailored towards people who are coming into the market and trying to learn and generally want to get a good gauge for price direction. But you're always welcome to come and ask me questions. Even if you are new or experienced, you're welcome to pick my brain about things or even push back. Hey, I don't agree with you. That's okay too. I'm game to look at your charts if you're game to look at mine. And at the end of the day, if you ever doubt any of the analysis I have, look to your own analysis and just make sure that your plan is formulated around your analysis, because you can only trade what's in front of you, right? You can't trade my chart. And your trading plan should revolve around your chart, not my chart. Everything that I give you here should be confluence and not financial advice. I have to say those things, by the way, right now. I'll explain some other time, but so I'm going to leave you with that. Please check out some of the Spaces events that I have coming up this week. If you are in the Ordinals community or you would like to get involved, I'm going to be on the Welsh 100-day giveaway Spaces event tomorrow, which is Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Not really. I'm not a co-host there, but I do join the speaker panel as a guest, talking about technical analysis, and sometimes some of the other speakers will ask me about other things because I do have some knowledge in these markets on the mining side and on the network side of things as well that I can offer up. And then on Wednesday, please head on over to the Palm or Pepe Ordinal Maxi event. That should be around, I believe, 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3:30 Eastern, if I remember correctly. And then, there might be something coming up on Thursdays. I got to go talk to some people. Maybe Green Candle Jack or White Cocoa can help me out with that one if you're watching. We'll see where that goes. Maybe Thursdays there will be something going on. And then on Fridays, please come over and check out the event with Nat Monkeys and myself, where I'm also a co-host. So Wednesday, Friday right now I'm co-hosting. All the other ones you see me on, I'm either a guest speaker or I just jump up on stage. But on Friday, Goyozo over there is doing a great job. If you don't know him, go and listen to our last event. He's doing a great job of getting like really interesting projects that are, pushing forward some innovation, whether it's, on the artistic side of things or on the technology side of things. A lot of them coming from Bitcoin Startup Labs as well. Really, really interesting, awesome stuff. If you're not familiar with what Bitcoin Startup Labs is doing, it's like an accelerator program or an incubator for ideas, if you want to think about it like that, but or a pre-accelerator for funding to get projects going and stuff like that. And there's a lot of really, really cool people that we've met and talked to, and very excited to follow up with them over time as they develop, and then get new people up on stage and talk with them, pick their brain about what their project is and the way forward from the technology side of things. And then very soon there will be a new Bitcoin order event going on, and this will also be a Spaces event with myself and Loki over there from New Bitcoin Order. So packed schedule, more videos coming out, of course, and be on the lookout for an intro to trading series pretty soon. You all have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy out.